Welcome back to episode 62 of On the Spot Sports. And in today's episode, we have good friend of mine, uh, a guy who's been training me for the past 2 years for cross country at school. We got Zach Taylor coming on the podcast, and today we talked to him about strength and conditioning, hockey training, running training, pretty much sports training in general, and it's going to be a good one. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. Yo, welcome back to another episode of On the Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and today we have a very special guest. We have a friend of mine and my former strength and conditioning coach / GA, Zach Taylor on. Zach went to Elmhurst College from 2014 to 2018. He was a graduate assistant for the cross country and track programs from 2018 to 2020. He has a BA degree in exercise science and a master's in industrial and organizational psychology, and has certifications in strength and conditioning and personal training. Welcome to the show, Zach Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Just day by day taking it. So how's everything with you?
Everything's going good with me. Just enjoying life. I got a baseball coaching job, so doing that while also exercising, running still, all that.
Yeah, keeping busy during these times. It's an important thing.
It is. So what have you been doing during quarantine when we're in the phases before, and now since everything's reopening, what are you doing now?
So the first couple of phases I was, wasn't really doing anything when we were on complete lockdown in coaching regards. Now that, once we hit phase 3, a gym I work at, we opened back up within the boundaries, doing a lot of outside work and everything like that. We'd have the gym open for about 8 hours a day, had 9 people in there plus a coach, keeping it at that 10 mark. And then right now with the guidelines being, right around 50, we never get that many people in there. So we're kind of sitting at the same status quo, we'll have 9, occasionally 12 people in the gym at a time and kind of take it there. So they're 6 days a week, along with cleaning everything and making sure everything's sanitary. So that's kind of, taking my time now the past month, and then, going into the future right now as we enter the next phase.
Zach's Mr. Clean Guy now, huh?
Yep. Gotta keep everything, scrubbing away, making sure all the equipment's clean now.
Yeah. So do you guys have to wear masks in your gym?
No, we don't require anybody to wear a mask. Just because with a lot of the stuff we're doing, it's, it'd be pretty tough to wear a mask in there.
Yeah.
But we give people the option, obviously if someone's wearing a mask, we respect that. And we're lucky the warehouse, it's fairly small and easy for everybody to keep six feet away, as our equipment's pretty spaced out. So, we've been able to work with it.
Yeah, that's at least good that you guys are open, and it seems like you guys have been pretty busy. So that at least business is rolling right now.
Yeah, no, definitely with small gyms, especially in this time. How much gyms closed with the time we were closing, and other gyms close to being closed. So it was good that our community came out and came back and supported us. As we work through the new requirements and what we had to work with while this COVID stuff still kind of going on, and while Illinois may be opening, working its way towards progress, other states aren't as lucky. So we're just working with what we got and rolling with the punches right now.
Yeah. So can you explain to the viewers why you got into exercise science and psychology and all that, and your road till where you are right now?
Yeah. So big thing for me is I played sports all my whole life. I played baseball, a little bit of basketball, and then once I got later in my high school career, started with track and field and cross country. And then I went to some training spots, sports performance gyms, and I loved the environment there. I thought it'd be cool to get to do that. The information they knew about, I think learning about the human body is one of the most fascinating things. So that kind of spurred my interest. I went to Illinois State for a year and realized, I loved it there, but figured coaching would be, getting a chance to be a college athlete would help, get me into the career of coaching. So transferred to Elmhurst, going into my sophomore year of college. And then, hooked up with an internship my junior year at the gym I'm at now, and loved it. And, he brought me on part-time. So it's been the owner and I, and, we have, right now we have another part-timer to help out. And then, during various times, the school year, we have interns in and out where we kind of train and get them some experience coaching. And, I fell in love with it there. Really fell in love with, cross country and track and field back in, college, where I wanted to get into it. That's why, Elmhurst worked out perfectly, where I got to coach there. Got to do strength conditioning, work with you cross country guys, work with pretty much every event. So I got pretty lucky, in getting a wide range of knowledge, working with so many events. Not many people get, that opportunity. And that, kind of kept me going. And, just previous coaches I've had, really made me want to get in the field.
Yeah. So you played a lot of sports when you were younger. So did that really help you? Were you looking into the strength and conditioning stuff all along? Was that something that really interested you right away, that you started to do this?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I started training at a place my sophomore year of high school. And I really, I enjoyed going there. The coaches were awesome, and, you kind of have them as your role model. And once, I started going there consistently, as I was, it was now, going into my senior year, where I'm kind of looking at colleges and, need to know what I kind of want to do with school. That's when I really thought, hey, let's do exercise science, start learning the process behind these things, see if I like that, because, I always thought being one of those coach role models for the younger athletes would be something cool to do, and it was just something, as I went through the process, I fell in love with it, and, wanted to be able to help someone go through the process and be a part of, someone else's journey. I thought that'd be fun.
Yeah. And you're definitely a role model for sure there. All the younger athletes, and even me, you push me really hard. And I appreciate that.
No problem. Yeah, I appreciate you seeing me like that. Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky to work with some really good athletes. So, I've gotten the opportunity to see how hard they, not just how hard they work, but, all the little things they do. They don't just, do the sexy looking stuff hard, lifting weights, or, in hockey, if it's going on the ice, or, at track, going on the track and running, doing the little things like mobility, getting enough sleep, putting good food in your body, all the little details. The high level athletes do the little details with just as much intensity as they do, their workouts and, their on the field practice stuff. They do everything with the same intensity, and put the same amount of thought in everything.
Yeah, so sleep is obviously a really important factor to becoming a good athlete. So how much do you preach on how the amount of time you should be sleeping, and nutrition as well, and all that?
Sleep, 8 hours, the golden number. If you can get, obviously that's an ideal world, and, we don't always live in that ideal perfect state, so 7 to 9 hours is a little bit of a range. And that's where, as a coach, you kind of have to learn, when working with a college athlete, everybody's gone to college. It's very rare where you're able to get to bed at, even midnight. And then, you get up at 6 or 7 for maybe a morning lift or morning practice. That's, sleep, school, all that other stressors going on. Sleep as a college athlete really gets limited. So, being aware of that as a coach, and, making sure, unfortunately having to work how you structure your practices around the sleep. Unfortunately, due to scheduling classes, you're going to have some morning workouts or morning practices. And, maybe you have another one later, and you have to structure where, okay, maybe our morning one is an easy one because everyone's, getting up. We're not going to get much good work out of there because everyone's half asleep and groggy. But it does kind of get them starting to move. And then in the afternoon, we go hit it hard. Let's do our intense stuff, or something that, all the things we have to really think about and do perfectly. and do that in the afternoon just because we know at that time they're going to be more awake. They've had a whole school day. They've gotten food in their body. If they needed a nap for a little bit, they got a little extra sleep there. So that's kind of the sacrifices you have to make. And, sometimes you need those morning practices, and you kind of have to just structure them soundly enough where you can get what you really need to get done well, done in a later session when your athletes are more awake and can put more into the practice.
Yeah. Being a college athlete is definitely fun, but we both know it takes a lot, and you not get as much sleep as you should. And it's just grind, to be honest. It's grind.
Oh yeah, you have to. Yeah, I mean, with school, so you still have a personal life, things going on, whether that's at home, relationships, anything like that. There's school tests, studying, what projects you got. Eating right's not the easiest in college. You're living on your own. Dorm food, calf food in a college is not always the most healthy. You got to work with what you got. So yeah, you really have to, try to do, as best you can, get that 7 hours of sleep. It really takes a lot of time management and knowing you got to do what you got to do. Because, your coaches are always going to do, what they can to get optimal performance, make sure you're getting everything you need done. So you need to try and do your best, as best as you can, to make sure you're doing the little things like, sleeping, nutrition, not putting, a bunch of donuts down in the morning before practice, or you got a 6 or 7 a.m. workout or lift, and, at 10 o'clock, you're at McDonald's eating a bunch of food, that's going to be in your stomach at the morning, and you're going to be feeling that in the morning. You don't want a nice little happy meal in your belly the time you're doing a morning lift. So that all plays, and your nutrition plays a role in, how much energy you have throughout the day and how you feel. I feel a lot better when I eat healthy than when I go to McDonald's for lunch and I feel like crap kind of the rest of the day. So no one's perfect, you're obviously you're a kid and, you're a human being that you need some happiness in life, where if your friends are going to McDonald's, and you haven't had it in 2 weeks and you have one little thing, it's not going to kill you, but you can't let habits revert, and you got to make sure you stay true to the grind.
Yeah. So how important are habits as like an athlete and like overall person? Like how important do you think it is?
Oh, I think a schedule and having a normal schedule is, spot on. I mean, when you're in routine, it's harder for you to cheat that routine where, if 1 week you say, all right, I'm going to do this, 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 and then next week you're like, oh, okay, let's change my schedule up a little bit and let's do, this, this, this. You're going to keep fluctuating and your timing is going to change. The best, get in that routine, set that time management and everything. That's going to help you make sure you get your homework done each week, at the right time, to get to sleep at a good time, to make sure, if you got 6 a.m., you're like, all right, I need to get to bed. If I get to bed at 9, I usually fall asleep. It takes me an hour or half hour to fall asleep. I'm still getting around 8 hours. And then, okay, have your meals prepped to eat at certain times to make sure you can eat, the clean, healthy meals that you want to eat. And then, it helps manage your stress load because you have everything in check, because stress plays a big role in recovery. So the better you can manage those stressors where it's not as big of it, because obviously school is still always going to be a stress. However you manage it, most people are worried about their grades, worried about graduating and getting everything done. So the better you can manage that, the less stress it'll cause you, and that'll help you recover. And staying in that routine helps and structure helps you stay on top of life as much as you can. I mean, obviously curveballs will come in the way, but hopefully, you're able to work around whatever curveballs are thrown. And, while you may temporarily get knocked off schedule, you're so used to your routine that once you're able to get back in that normal routine, you hop back in it.
Yeah. As a athlete, like in the season, like routine's just like right there. Like,
yeah,
I don't even need an alarm clock to wake me up. Like it's right there. And like, I just go through my day every day. But when it's off season and like especially in the summer, that's where it gets tough.
That's when summer training is big.
Yeah, because I've been I started out the summer working out like 3 p.m. and it'd be like switch off between like 3 p.m., 5 p.m., maybe even after dinner. But now, since we're like midway through summer,
Yeah.
I definitely have a more of a routine now, and it's easier than anything else.
Yeah. And it also helps now that, stuff's starting to open back up in Illinois. Like when COVID was, full peak, you were at home, it's kind of hard, your routine gets a major curveball where now all the things you normally do, you can't do. Um, so it's easy to push off, doing the things you need to do or like the training you usually do, you start pushing that off and I'll do it later, just because now you're stuck in this kind of monotony of, sitting at home, not doing the things you're used to. So you kind of just go with the flow, and it definitely makes it a lot harder because then, you're stuck in the same environment, and without interacting with other people. And I think one of the biggest things, when I see the elite athletes that we've worked with work, they generally have a group of them that they're working with. And it's amazing what the human body does mentally and physically when you see the people you're working with, break a set a PR in something or do something crazy athletically, and how that gets your mind right, and you start competing at a higher level because you don't want to let go of them. So that's why, especially with training aspect with athletes, during COVID, when you're not allowed to work with, you can't work with anybody else, that makes it that much harder to keep yourself on track. And you're not some people are self-motivated enough to push themselves by themselves, but it's a lot easier when you have someone doing the things right next to you and you want to beat someone out. Healthy competition really helps set the tone. I think it's one of the biggest things that can help improve performance is healthy competition with someone, a training partner and whatever they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like training alone sucks, but like as long as you have the motivation to do it, like
Yeah.
you push yourself and like that's good for you. But overall, just being with like teammates and like having like that camaraderie and like that push, that like healthy competition, like you said, really does have an improvement, and it really does like elevate your game to the next level for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about recovery earlier. So like, what are some like recovery like stuff that people should know about recovery? Like, what should you do after like a game, meet, etc., like that? Or, like,
yeah. So I mean, it kind of depends on the sport. I think some meets, or sports, you have to replenish your body with the nutrients you lose. Whatever foods, you lose your carb source while you're working. You get dehydrated and everything. So making sure you replenish it. And then, generally, whatever sport you're in, generally your body's working pretty hard. So getting the ample nutrients like proteins to, recover after a game. And then the big, going home, relaxing and going to sleep, getting that 8 hours of sleep, 9 hours of sleep to help your body kind of shut down and, get itself ready for the next day. Those are some game day stuff. And then, in the weight room, a lot of similar concepts. You might not get as dehydrated as, depending on your sport, or have to worry as much about a carb source. You have to worry about other things. But, another thing we like to do is, even though, like after a heavy lifting session or an intense lifting session, your nervous system doesn't just shut down right away and go into recovery mode. So doing natural, easy movements like as simple as skipping, crawling, thing we would do cross crawls, and stuff like that just gets the nervous system backfiring in its normal pattern. So it starts going into safety mode where it's like, okay, I'm not getting pushed anymore. We could start to wind down. And that helps start the recovery process sooner. So that's something that I like to have athletes do just to kind of get them recovering if they, they're training every day. Ideally, they get plenty of time, but, again, we talk about, schedules. Sometimes you don't get 24 hours between sessions. Sometimes it's 12 hours. So the quicker we can get recovery started, the better.
Yeah. So I know a lot of like, especially pro athletes, like they use recovery supplements. Do you like support like the use of like supplements for recovery and all that?
It definitely, depends. The more research the supplement, creatine's a very highly researched supplement. and it's proven pretty safe to use. Protein for recovery. The best way to recover is by getting it through eating, getting it naturally. But if you're going to work right after training, or you got to go sit in class and you can't get anything in your body, use a supplement like protein to start getting something in your body to help it recover. Do that before nothing. Obviously, if you can go home, eat, or you got a packed, quality meal, like chicken and rice, or, broccoli and chicken, to help get you started on recovery, use that. And then, but, obviously time's everything. So if you don't have that kind of time, using a supplement like a protein shake definitely is better than not doing anything right after to start recovering and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot about creatine. Like, what is like creatine exactly? And like, is it better than protein, or like what is it?
They do two different things really. So creatine could be used kind of intra-workout or as a pre-workout, and it could be used to kind of start to the creatine phosphate system, which is kind of our short burst, 1 to 7 seconds of intense movement, like a short sprint or an explosive lift or a jump. That helps replenish those stores. So it helps with that, feeling a little more energized in there and feeling like you could do a couple more reps. It also helps, individuals, it's been shown, to help put on a little bit of weight while it's a little more water weight, but it helps people bulk up when needed. But really it's used I like to use it intra-workout or before workout to kind of help get, a little bit more energy and help me get through the workout a little better.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but like I just want to make sure with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sports training is huge nowadays, and like athletes have to train to be the best they can. As a sports training specialist, what does sports training mean to you, and how should people go about it?
I think, I think sports training's changed a lot. I think it went from heavy, barbells, dumbbells, machine training. It stemmed from there, where now it's got a lot more sprint-based, plyometric-based, throwing med balls, and still weightlifting at certain times. But I think weightlifting specifically in the weight room has taken a little bit more of a backseat in sports performance, and working more, movements that individuals use in their sport, whatever they're doing, and really focusing on, sprinting, jumping, and, the horizontal, vertical, or frontal planes, and then really just using the weight room to supplement with some stuff, still building strength with some weight room. Strength's still important. Just used it a little more minimal aspect. One of the guys, rugby strength coach, on Instagram, kind of talks about how you should kind of be afraid that you're doing too little, because again, you wanna err on the side of caution, and undertrain your athletes rather than overtrain them and ruin a whole season, because they're overtrained this season. So that's where I think it's kind of taken a kind of, change for me, where it went from, using a lot of those weights and everything to, focusing a lot more on mobility, sprinting, jumping, using med balls, and, being in the weight room more 2 or 3 times a week instead.
Yeah, so you train with a lot of different athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how do you like pick like programs for people to do, and like how do you like create a program overall?
Yeah, so I mean, you have to do a needs analysis of whatever sports they play. You kind of have to, start from there and backtrack, and really break it down on what are, the key performance indicators, things that are going to show, that help really athletes at the athletes at the highest level in that sport perform well. So you identify those in each sport, that the athlete's playing. And then what we do is we go through kind of like, in a general guard is NFL Combine in a sense. We do a 10-yard dash instead of 40 because, our turf only goes about 25 to 30 yards. So we're a little limited on that. But then we still do broad jump, 5, 10, 5, vertical jump. We have a vertec to get an accurate measurement. We test our athletes' grip. So that's a little bit different than the Combine. And then another exercise we test are, the amount of pull-ups they can do. So those are what we can test at our gym. And then we look at their numbers based on how they perform and kind of take away from that of what areas do we need to train? Are we lacking in? Where are we a little further ahead in? And based on those results, we then can, further make the program a little more individualized, because now, we've broken it down first in their sport, and then we do the testing to break it down further for the specific individual in that sport.
Yeah, so how long does it usually take you to create a program? Or is it just fast?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for the sport, you generally have a general needs analysis where exercise they need. So you kind of, once you do that once, you always have that. Then you kind of have to keep in mind, what age the athlete is, what's their prior training experience. Because even if you're 15 years old but you never touched a dumbbell, and then you're 12 years old but you've already been lifting and you're competent in the movement patterns we're going to do. If you're 15 and never touched, your training age is 0, we got to start you from scratch and make sure you know all the movements. So that's a big thing. And then we have to identify what time of the year it is in the season, pre, post. Are we in season, off season? Identify those things. And then identify where the athlete's weakest links are, through our testing, or just, we always ask the athlete, what do you feel like you need to work on? Or ask, if we have access to their coach, see where they're weak there, if we could watch some film, base it off that. A high quality program, it takes a good amount of time to build. And I think, the interesting thing as a coach is you kind of keep learning all the time, where, there's programs I wrote at the start of my career, 3 years ago, that I would think are trash now because of everything I've learned. And, so when you start including everything you need to include, and then the specific athlete, it could take a couple days to write out, a well thought out program, which is, why, we, that's the biggest part of the job for sure. And that we test after we make programs for every 4 weeks usually. So we could test after those 4 weeks to see if the program addressed what we wanted to address. And then if some things regressed a little bit, not hugely, but just a little bit, we say like, okay, maybe a couple things need to be changed in this type of program for next time. So that's kind of how we keep, so we keep using that testing to make sure our programming is taking us where we want to go then too.
Yeah, so if they don't go to your gym and you can't test them, so like how do you determine what they do after that, like kind of like in my situation right now?
Yeah, so I think that would depend on the case. So obviously, you couldn't test. We go based on how your body's feeling. We could still do some small tests, obviously not vertical jump tests and stuff like that, but you could athletes can kind of tell if they have a little more spring in their step. Looking at, depending on what the goals are for that program, having set measurements that we could, you could talk about, if you're on Zoom call or just online training that you could have in order to make sure we're on the right path. And, some athletes are even able to, feel the difference in sports too, when they're playing on the ice, hey, I lasted a lot longer, or, this was a lot better than it's ever been, those are other indicators. Well, we can't have the data from the test to back it, that right there is just, letting us know we're on the right path. And then, and then we look at numbers that we can look at, when we have an athlete that isn't in the facility. But a lot of it's through talking and making the athlete aware of how their body should feel and, what improvements are being made.
Yeah, I've known you for 2 years, so you giving me the program, we know each other, so
yeah,
I'm gonna tell you what I want, how I feel,
yeah.
and then my needs as well.
Yeah. I think coaching now it needs to be. I think the biggest thing, because again, there's no right way, one right way to train. There's multiple different ways that could get you to the destination. There's a lot of successful training methods. They're successful by, I think, the coach and athlete relationship, where they both know, because obviously one training program might be good for one individual. It's not going to be as successful the other. So knowing the athlete and knowing what they need that might be good for one person but wouldn't be good for, another athlete, is knowing what athlete needs what and having that open communication with each athlete, building that trust. And I like to, I always encourage, athletes to ask why they do something to build that buy-in, and then also ask them what they've done before and kind of what also they like to do. If there's two things that, two exercises that get our goal done, what we want to work on done, I have a preference of one exercise, but you have a preference of another, and you could do your preference in a technically safe way and you do it efficiently. I'll let you do that exercise. I'm going to let you do the exercise that you're going to enjoy more and put more effort in than forcing you to do my specific exercise that I prefer and have you kind of half-ass and not like it as much. So that's where the give and take and knowing the athlete and, giving them some accountability in the process as well. Because even when, athletes are even at the gym, you can't outwork a bad diet or bad sleep habits. And you have to, our high athletes know that that's what it takes, and they're accountable outside of the gym when no one's watching. And that's, because obviously they're only in the gym usually only gym for an hour. So we only see them for an hour. Maybe, a lot of people usually come 4 days a week. Some come every day. Some come 5 days. We only have them for that time period. So it's really, explaining them what's important, and that athlete being accountable, knowing that they want to get, they have goals they want to get to and can do that on their own as well.
Yeah, so you're talking about like preseason, postseason, and like in season. So like for like training wise, like what do you like look for as like when you're in season compared to like when you're on an off season?
So like in season, we're going to cut the volume down usually a large amount. The intensity still is there. We're moving the bar with intent, and we're still intense with the exercises to get adaptation and to get to maintain our strength and our speed that we've developed in the weight room and then outside of the weight room in the off season. But obviously now you're doing more with your season sport. So whatever volume of work you have there is going to be higher than than it probably was in the off season, depending on your coach and coaching style. But then you're also in very intense games now that are going to take a lot out of you as well, and you need to be fresh for. So we decrease the volume to keep our body fresher, but still work at an intensity to make sure that we are getting where we want to get to.
You've been at Elmhurst College for the past 2 years, or technically 5 years, but coaching for 2.
Yeah.
Like, as like when you go into like running, it's like what goes into like building that running program for like lifts, mobility work, stretches, and stuff like that?
Yeah, so mobility work, a lot of I think mobility is important for everybody. If we can't get through our body through the proper ranges of motion, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Mobility is key to prevent injuries. Weight room is big for preventing injuries for runners. I think and a lot of every sport, weight room done properly is to prevent injuries and strengthen the body so it doesn't get injured. And that's obviously the most important thing, because if you're getting hurt, you're not playing, then you're not on the field, no one cares. If you're not on the field, you're not making money, you're not earning a scholarship, you're not making progress to where you want to get to. That's the cold, hard truth. So that's always priority number one. And then in running regards, doing sprint work or, doing plyometric work or weight training to make sure that, we could improve or decrease our ground contact time. So produce more force each step. The quicker we are off the ground, the faster we're going to go. Use the weight room in some speed work in pure speed work like flying tens to improve our top end speed and get faster, because if we have a max speed of 20 miles per hour, sitting at 18 miles per hour is going to feel pretty tough because you're close to your max. Where if you have a max speed, we're just using examples, is 24, holding 18 miles per hour is going to feel a lot easier because you got a higher max speed. And that could be done, with sprinting, with properly programmed sprints, and then with proper weight training, being strong enough and then turning that strength into power and explosiveness. So that's kind of, another area of where we do it. And, getting strong enough to run efficiently and doing high top end sprinting to learn how to efficiently run. And I think warm-ups in the weight room should complement also running, where, you're doing a warm-up that will improve running mechanics as well. Just doing the little things, it's not going to make you faster, but if it can make you a little bit more efficient where you're wasting less energy, then, that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, and I know you've worked on me with a lot of this, because like I was not running efficiently, and you could attest for that.
Yeah.
And you've definitely been harsh on me there, and like actually like trying to make me be as efficient as I can, which is good.
Yeah, I think I think a coach is hard on individuals because they want you to be successful, and I don't think I think every athlete should know that generally, most of the time. Obviously, it's not in every case, but coach watches some of the athletes that can be good, but they just need a little bit more work, and you kind of learn through time, what it takes, and that's the importance of having proper coaching, because you by the time you get to college, you've been running for a while, and those have been your mechanics. That's your natural state. We're trying to work a little bit to keep improving little by little. It'll never be perfect just because you've been running for so long by now. That's just where your body, come race time when you want to go, your body's going to go to what's natural. You shouldn't be thinking about this and this. You're just going to go.
Yeah. So how important is your VO2 max for to get to that peak performance?
Context. I think VO2 max is definitely a good thing. It's a good thing to test to see where you're at, but it's not the end all be all. There's no one measurement, that's going to always trump another. What your time is in cross country is your time. VO2, maybe you can run crazy distance, but if you're not fast enough for that event, there's a lot of other things that come into play than just VO2 max. And that's with every measurable too. Because you could be as fast as can be, but if you don't have that VO2 and endurance, you're not going to last a cross-country race. So, it's knowing what you need in each area and training each enough to, be the best you could be.
Yeah, I think that's huge as well. Like what you just said, like it's not like the what's the word, like the best, like you have to do this, but like I definitely think it's important, especially to test what you can do, how far you can push yourself as well.
Yeah, no, and it's just another tool in the toolbox to have, another measurable to use and kind of see where you're at with.
Yeah, so going away from running for a little bit, like hockey is another big thing for me, and like I know a lot of people that listen to this, hockey is a big thing for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you do for how should hockey players train and to help them improve and continue to develop and achieve their goals?
And that's where, again, looking at sports, grip in hockey is important. You have to be laterally quick, reaction. You still need acceleration. While on the ice it's a little different, you still need that acceleration capacity. Big mobility. You guys need crazy mobility, coordination and everything. And then going into, different, obviously each position is going to train a little different. And finding the different drills that work. Like a goalie, we put a tape, set up a taped little goalie on the wall, goalie box in the wall, and you're in the box, and have someone throw cards at you, and start getting used to that hand-eye coordination, see it, try and block it, save as many as you can before they go in. Lateral quickness, shuffling, a lot of read and react, and that's any on the field sport. And then really breaking that up into individual by individual. Again, we test, we work with STX 68 out at Seven Bridges. We do a very similar test there that we do in our gym, because those measurables off ice are they translate pretty much everywhere. We do pull-up tests because, the NHL combines and have pull-up tests. We test there. We don't do 5-10-5 there, but we do a med ball rotation we call it the med ball scoop toss, and see how far they can rotate and throw it kind of like a slap shot to get an idea where their rotational power is, because that's pretty important for hockey players. We do our grip test, because you're gripping on that stick the whole game. The weaker your grip gets, you're not going to be able to put as much power. So we look at that, and then we look at single leg power. Out of you guys are kind of bent at weird angles in your knees, so we train different angles with isometrics, and we get explosive out of different angles, like a nice single leg. We do a single leg seated vertical jump, because you got to be powerful off one leg in hockey, and you got to get comfortable in low positions. So getting powerful there, and then we do vertical test, and then 60. I think it's a 60-yard dash, something like that. 60-yard, I think, or 60-meter, one of the two. And then we do broad jump, because those measurables are all still important. Testing speed, because if you're not fast off ice, you're probably not going to be as fast on ice. So we do both testing, and they do on ice tests there too. And we kind of a lot of our studies have shown, not studies, but the results have shown that the guys who are going into freshman high school that already have D1 offers are the guys that are testing the best at the camp, both on and off ice. And it's pretty cool to see the high correlation test. The single leg seated jump was a very high correlated test to who was one of the top performers in the camp. So it was pretty cool to see how those drills really did correlate with who was performing well in the off ice test and who was performing well in their games and in their inter squad games and everything during the camp.
Yeah, so you've worked with some professional hockey players as well.
And yeah, we've had a couple.
Yeah, so I want to be a professional hockey player, and I know some others that watch this want to be one too. So what do you see from them that you would really preach about?
Again, the little things. The top I know is they're looking at their body fat. They're looking at what they're putting in their body. They have a structured meal plan. They are getting on ice. They're making sure they're getting, because obviously ice, you could lift all you want. If you're not on ice, you're going to be a little clunky on the ice if you haven't done any work there for a while. So that, and then, they're doing the weight room stuff, mobility, treating their body right, doing everything for recovery, getting enough sleep. They are structuring their day to make sure they're getting everything you need to get in order to get to that next level. I think the biggest thing, any athlete could do is start doing the little things really well, because you already know you're going to work your butt off at practice, and, you're going to work your butt off in the stuff you like to do, the weight room, practice, and games. Start working your butt in the little stuff and start creating that routine and getting that routine to create good habits, and good things are going to come. And, that comes with having a really good coach that knows what you need and also, isn't going to get you hurt. And then having a really good support system and accountability on yourself to make sure you're doing the things that you need to do when you're not with your on-ice coaches, when you're not with your off-ice coaches, and, you're at home with no one watching, and you could do anything, and you can go to your coach and say, oh, yeah, I've been doing everything that, you've told me, or I'm eating clean and everything, but really you're going home and eating chips. You could fool your coach, but the only one you're really hurting is yourself.
Yeah, it's really important to have that schedule and rely on your day for the sport that you want to play in, because just doing that, it just focuses you even more than it already has, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So unlike running, hockey, you need to put more muscle on than your average runner. So, how do we as hockey players lift to build muscle strength and endurance along with the explosiveness we need to push off and skate?
And that goes into the year-long programming. Different phases, you focus on different things while having the other elements present. But each part of the season, you have the main theme or main focus you want to work on, and then you kind of just minimally work on the others. So, they're still being worked and you're not losing what you have. So that kind of changes during each stage of the season and what part of the season we're in. If we're in off season, in season, all that stuff. that plays a big role on what we're going to primarily work on and then what we're going to keep. Because, when you're on ice so much in season, you're getting your conditioning on ice. So we don't have to worry about that as much in the weight room. We'll have to worry about other things where you're off season. Maybe, you're taking a little time off, but you're not on the ice right now. So we need to keep your conditioning. So we need to, ramp that up a little bit more on different times of the year. And I always err on the side of caution with conditioning because I would rather have a more explosive athlete who's a little less conditioned, but conditioned enough to get through the game. Just because, that speed and power is something that, a lot of places like. So those always are the things that, coaches at the next level are looking at.
Yeah. So as like a positional standpoint, should players forwards and defensemen train different than goaltending
Yes,
does what should forwards and defensemen do compare goaltenders?
Well, forwards and defensemen, they're moving around more, so they'll need more conditioning. They need, as a goalie, you're not accelerating as much. The speed's not going to be as big of a factor. We still need to work it because athleticism, and it's really, it translates into other things, but you're getting tested on different things where we're going to work your hand-eye coordination a lot more because you need to be able to handle, pucks being hit at you all game. And then we're also going to put you in highest pressure situations because whenever, the offense is trying to score on you, there's pressure. Your heart rate's elevated. There's never a time where people are trying to score on you where you're not in a pressure scenario. So making sure that you could think, remain calm, and stay coordinated and focused in those high pressure situations is another thing we really focus on for goalies.
Yeah, especially as a goaltender, the intensity is tough.
Yeah.
even as forwards, when you're on the ice, you just take 30-second shifts, and the intensity is there. But when it's in the zone as a goalie, you always have to be
it's
be
always on for
reacting.
You're not getting off ice regularly like everybody else. So that's where the training for conditioning also could get a little specific for other position is, you could look at the average time, each line is on ice, and how much time they're getting rest. And you could take those averages and kind of train your conditioning and speed work around those averages as well.
Yeah, so you were a part of STX 68, like you said, and you were an assistant strength and conditioning coach there.
Yeah.
You ran off ice training with STX. So what was that like, especially training with people who had some D1 offers already?
Oh, I mean, those kids all are there for a reason. And, even at those camps where you're getting the high level individuals, the kids that are there to work, and it's not just, they're having fun there, but they're there to work and they're there to see where they're at, and they're taking it super serious, where you could even see some of the kids, again, they're still stellar athletes, but then you have some of the other kids, are kind of having a little more fun or a little more relaxed or joking around a little bit more, aren't as dialed in. And those aren't the kids with the offers yet. The kids and again, you could still get offers, those kids are rare. This is a camp with the top 68, men, and this past year they had top 68 women as well. But you got the top 68 where you have, the small sample size of them have offers. So that's what makes it rare, is even at that level, you could see the difference. And, I always tell people, I read a book, Raise Your Game. And it talks about how, a scout wouldn't just go to the games. He'd get there, for basketball, he'd get there early for the basketball games to watch, the guys warm up and see how dialed in they were there. I think going to watch a practice is very important because, one guy might just be talented, but he's not training real hard, so he's not going to keep improving because he doesn't want it as bad as another guy who's extremely talented. And at practice, he's going 100% and doing everything he's asked. He's going to come in your program, do what you ask, and keep developing, where the other kid might come in your program, joke around. He might be a great athlete and still, make the starting lineup, but he's not going to be those different game-changing difference makers for your program, possibly.
Yeah, some of those people might just be just game ready guys, and they'll do everything game day, and they're talented. When it comes to practice, their work ethic just isn't really there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what was something that you learned from that made everyone so successful that you saw from STX?
I think, they get the process. They kind of know what it is. And again, we're working with kids going to be freshmen, so not everybody gets it right away. And hockey's an interesting beast because obviously you could start getting drafted right at 18. You're in those professional leagues. Those start, what do those start in? Once you're in high school as well?
Yeah.
Um, so, you could get an agent when you're in high school in hockey and you're playing in leagues where you're still getting paid. And you're away from your family, you're living with someone else. Like hockey's a completely different beast where, it requires you to mature fast because you're learning things that most high schoolers and most people don't need to learn until they graduate and go to college on their own. So the maturity level is definitely a huge thing in, coachability and absorbing everything because, they're being given opportunities to work with high level coaches on ice and off ice and get data about their, numbers early at an early age to start addressing where they're at and developing from there. So it's not even just taking the camp serious. It's taking those numbers that you get on and off ice and you're on and off ice testing, and then getting the feedback you get from your coaches on ice during the games of what you need to work on in game, and taking that and then learning from that, using those tips that you've been given and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and improving your weaknesses and continuing to prove those strengths. Because again, freshman, you still have 4 years about till you can be drafted. So a lot can change in that time where, if you just live off that SCX experience, it doesn't mean anything once you get to the pros. Getting that time to be drafted, you could have just rested on your, all the accomplishments you had at that point and kind of gone home. So kind of using the feedback and data you're given and making the most of it to, take your game to that next level.
Yeah, I think the process it's just a process. Like you would do everything, you work, you grind.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the process is going to take you where you want to be.
Yeah.
But you just got to have that work ethic.
Work ethic, and you got to make sacrifices because again, you're not getting the normal high school experience doing all the hockey stuff because a lot of those kids do online, high school, or they're changing high schools right when their season ends or going back home for the high school, to their home high school once their season ends for a little bit of break. So you're not getting to spend time with the people you grew up with, and you're bouncing around everywhere. So you just have to, recognize the sacrifices you need to make and, say, hey, do I want to half-ass this? And, be really good and get to a good level, but never get to the level you really wanted to get to. So you really kind of have to go into it knowing that, hey, sacrifices are going to be made, but this is going to get me to where I want to get to, which is hopefully get you into the NHL.
Yeah. So now you work at the sports lab in Addison, Illinois, right?
Yep.
So like, what's it like working there, and like, what do you do on like a daily basis when you're at the gym?
Yeah, we're working one-on-one with athletes. We got a bunch. Depending who's in, everybody's getting individualized programs based on their sports season and their needs, and that sport and individually. So I kind of have to pay attention to everybody because it's not really group sessions. It's all really one-on-one, depending on how many coaches are there. And then I'm working with the athletes. Making sure our movements are clean, assigned conditioning or, agility work and sprint work, depending on what their needs are. And that's getting to know every athlete. And then making sure, they're pushing themselves as well as, we recommend weight jumps. Some people, you don't always know what weights to use. So really paying attention to that. Assigning the right conditioning and agility work and sprint work, making sure that's good and making sure there's a high quality movements. And, if I know an athlete's got a camp coming up or a combine, working on starts and working on little things to make sure, by the time they get to that combine, everything's second nature. Because once you get to a combine, you only get, say broad jump, you're getting three attempts to jump, so really getting them ready for that. Or 40, sometimes you only get 140. So making sure we're in the best position to be successful with whatever's, coming up for each athlete.
Yeah, I think going into like camps and like combines, like you have to be at like your peak, like your peak part of like your training, because you only get one shot.
Yeah,
so
and that's
got to make the most of it.
Yeah, that's why we do our tests. And we simulate it like, hey, you get 3 shots. We want them to be ready for that high pressure. We want them to know that's all they're going to get, and we want them to take the quality of movements and really focus on doing things correctly, and putting as much intent into whatever they're doing as possible, to make sure they get the result they want. And hopefully, if they mess up in our weight room, they learn, where then at the camp they know what they need to do and what they need to focus on.
Yeah, so like we were talking about earlier in the episode, you've worked with a lot of professionals. So like, who are some of the professionals that come to your gym often?
Oh, I mean, right now they're not in as much, but we got people in the NHL. We got people in the NFL. I think we got 3 guys right now. And I mean, it really depends how often right now they're in our gym, depending on the time of the year. When they're home, they come in. But that's the one tough thing is, being in Addison, and people are moving around everywhere. So when they're in regularly, however many times. They need to come in a week. Usually it's 4 or 5 times. And then same with, our high-level college guys. We don't get them, year-round anymore, like we do in high school. So when, they have time off in the summer, depending on when their camps go back, winter break, we see them pretty regularly. And they're coming in, 4 or 5 days a week, just to keep getting in that work. So, right now we got a really talented group of high schoolers that, have Division I offers, and they, it's really fun. We see them compete and they're pushing each other to PR. Right now it's the broad jumps, kind of our fun event where, they're setting crazy numbers for high schoolers. And then, one of our pro guys that's in, is hearing all these numbers. So he's like, I'm going to go work on this too, just because, he's hearing how fun it is. So it's really, we've created that high level performance environment and healthy competitive performance, because everyone's so happy when someone breaks a record. Like, they're not like, oh crap, my name's not on the board anymore. They're not cussing about it. They're like, hell yeah, congrats, dude. And they're like, all right, I can't wait till I get the chance to break the record. That's the kind of environment culture that, having those professional guys come in, and seeing their names on the board and seeing them work, it's motivated our other guys. And then, it's our college guys motivate the younger guys. And, everybody kind of motivates each other. It was pretty cool as we had a guy who used to come in our gym, a while ago before he got into high school, and he came back. After his senior year. He's a Division I commit for football, and I'm talking to him, telling about like all the guys that have been in, and the numbers these guys are putting up, and he's like, well, I'm here now, so let's see what we could do. It's we've created that environment of a healthy competition that everybody really wants to be a part of, because they're seeing everybody grow. And how cool it is to say like, oh yeah, I was training with that guy, as they see each other in different college fields. And hopefully, multiple new guys make it into the league where they're able to say, hey, yeah, I worked with them. That's probably the coolest thing. And, the culture in anything's important. And I think that's been the culture of healthy competition really has helped take our athletes to the next level in a huge way.
Yeah, and that just proves that, like, nothing happens overnight. Like, you got to work for it. And just to see like everything that your clients have done must be really amazing to see what they've done, like how they enjoyed the process.
Yeah, I mean, we had one guy that I think he's been maybe training with us for like a year, I think, maybe a little over a year. And the first time he came in, he was like a year or two. First time he came in, he was like a 7'9" broad jump guy. And recently he just broke our broad jump record for a high schooler, and he's jumping 9'10". So 9 feet 10 inches. And so, I mean, that's just in like a year or two. He's, beaten his old one from almost over 2 feet about. So, seeing that growth and seeing kids grow, it has been a huge, tremendous, we're hoping to hold like a mini combine at our gym with, invite all our athletes and then say, hey, if you got friends that, high school friends, teammates that want to, compete and see where they stack up and get a feel for the environment, here's a waiver, it costs this much, and make a big camp just so people can get a feel of that environment and see how that healthy competition healthy competitive environment really gets people to the next level and really pushes people to their athletic abilities.
Yeah, that's just awesome. Like I love that atmosphere wherever you are.
Yeah.
It really does like push you to your absolute limit, and like it. I love that.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, even the days you feel crappy, you see another guy working hard, you're like, all right, I'm going to make sure I get the most out of this workout and make it count.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
So as like a coach, like, do you think it like really helped you like become a better person? And like if so, like how did it help you?
Yeah, I think it has. As much as I say, I've helped athletes. I hope I help them more. Becoming better people than just better athletes. And your athletes. I love working. I've worked with kids from fifth grade all the way to the professional level. I've worked in the college environment. And everyone brings something new to the table, and everyone teaches you a little bit about their background, and you just get more perspective on life and what to value. And you kind of you get working with so many individuals, you get to kind of hear about a lot of different perspectives and backgrounds, to give you kind of give you a little bit more value on life, and what you've gotten to have, and the fact that I've not only helped other people on and off the field, but they have made an impact on my life and helping me become better, and push me to seeing them push each other makes me pushes me to be a better coach, and make sure I could deliver, help them get to where they want to go.
Yeah, that's just awesome. So if you had to like give like any tips to anyone about like how to like push themselves and like get to that next level, like through like training and all that, what would you give them? Like, or any tip? And yeah.
Oh man, just always have a desire to, just be one day, a little better. Each day is an opportunity.
1%.
Yeah, I mean, 1%. I mean, each day you could either take a step in the right direction or backtrack a little bit. Always put yourself in the right direction. Backtracks will happen once in a while. Life's not perfect, but really making sure that you are putting your best foot forward each day, and each day is another opportunity, because it's kind of cliche, but there's always guys working hard, and I don't think you just work hard to work hard, but work hard smartly. Don't just work hard to sweat and really work hard. Work hard to get with the intent of achieving what you want to achieve. What is the goal for that practice? What is that goal for the weight room session? Don't just go into anything to sweat and make you feel sore. If the goal is to be fast, where maybe you're going to be fresh afterwards, go be fast and make sure you're working fast. Do the things that you need to each day. Do the little things, and it'll help you get to where you want to get to.
Yeah, you do not. I cannot say that better. Like that was perfect. So like the final one is what's like been your like favorite memory throughout like this whole process?
Oh man, I mean, right now I have to say, probably the environment at the gym right now, just as a whole, seeing all these kids keep PR, and it's funny, because originally we thought we got probably 5 kids that are going to probably break the record this summer, for our broad jump, let's say. I mean, I'm sure they'll knock down other categories as we test it, and they just keep prove me wrong, where one guy laughed. He's like, you originally said it was going to be between two guys, and now I got the record. And I was like, yeah, you've turned it. I mean, the last week and a half, he's PR'd each time and gone crazy. And seeing that excitement to compete, that's where I felt most accomplished, because, it transfers, when our pro guys, seeing our pro guys come in and talk to some of our younger high schoolers, and like, oh man, this is you're this guy, like that's so cool, and asking about the process and getting to see that, and then having them give tips where no one feels like they're better than one another, and that's been probably the really most accomplished I've felt, just seeing the culture of the gym, even with COVID going on, like having that culture remain strong, even with the gym being closed for 2 or 3 months. When it's open back up, even with, strict, some new rules in place, that gym culture has always prevailed. And I think that's the coolest accomplishment I've had.
That's unreal. Like that's like an awesome experience as a coach to like,
Yeah.
especially like with all like your athletes and like how like no one thinks that they're better than the other person. Like it just creates like a healthy like work environment and like
Yeah.
healthy competition.
Yep. No, that's for sure, man.
Yeah. So ZT, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me on, Jack. It's been fun.
It definitely definitely has been. And that'll do it for this episode. So this was episode 62 with Zach Taylor, strength and conditioning coach. And thank you, Zach, for coming on the podcast. We had a lot of fun talking with you. And thank you all for listening. Go follow us on Instagram at On the Spot Sports with underscore between each word. So on underscore the underscore spot underscore sports at On the Spot Sports with underscores between each word. And listen to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.